Okay, Pete. Well, it's time to get going, so we're going to start the teardown process here. Your Daltron Incorporated Distributed 6309. Okay. Go ahead and remove your let's see if there's any remaining anything under here. A little bit of lubrication left. Amazing. Amazing. 40 years. It's incredible. So we're gonna cosmetically just clean things, no polishing of course, no change in lume or any of that. So we're gonna bring this back to just a crisp, clean state. Whoop, there we go. Very, very, very old lubrication that has dried here and there. All right. You can see here this is barrel lubrication that has seeped out over the years. There's your balance and hairspring. Okay, let's let the whatever remaining power is in your mainspring, we'll let that down. Very gummy, very gummy. All right, let's go ahead and decase the movement. Stem looks good, crown looks good. We'll dig into that a little bit more later. And there we have it. Beautiful. Very, very nice. So you can see here your resist text has faded to a slight yellowish from the original sort of brick red that was there. But your hands are beautiful, your dial is perfect. Everything just looks fantastic. Really, really stunning. So nice to open these and see that they're pristine. Untouched original watches are very hard to come by in the Seiko line. I mean, it's not that they're not out there, but they have been fooled around with over the years. They've become things that people have used and modded and changed, and sometimes it's a little sad to see them in a state that isn't as nice as this one is, for example. And there we go. Hands are off. Okay. Now, this is a 79 watch, so I suspect it will have somewhere in that vicinity of the date on the back of the dial, if it's going to have a date. It should be within a month or two of your case back. And it says 9/9. And your case back says 9/8. So it is. It's within a month. 1 month after, which is exactly what we want to see. So that's very good. Okay. Right. So now that's all off and happy. Let's go ahead and do the disassembly of your movement side, or your train side, I should say. Okay, there's your pallet fork. Looks pretty good. Set that aside for another look, and you can see here where the lubrication has sort of spiraled out of the mainspring and gotten on your ratchet wheel here. I suspect this is going to be a bit of a mess underneath. With some serious wear. I'm expecting wear. Woo! Holy moly. Wow. Lordy, lordy. You see this brass right here? That is from this wheel tipping into your bridge and wearing it out over time. These mainspring arbor ports are just susceptible to that. So that is why we're here, and that is why your watch may not be running as well as we hope. But we will mitigate that problem with our jeweling procedure, and that will be really quite nice at the end. I don't suspect that's going to have any negative impacts beyond just the wear. You can see, you know, this lubricant here acts like a bit of a grinding paste, and your barrel itself has actually worn into the... Ooh, we're going to have a lot of cleaning to do right there, but that's okay. It's also part of the process. There's your click spring. Okay, you can see your train of wheels here is covered by this grease. Your fourth wheel. Third wheel. Your escape wheel. You got a hair in here. How funny. For a watch that's never been opened, it has a hair inside the watch. So interesting. Daltron. I blame Daltron. Faceless company. Just kidding. Okay. Barrel looks okay. Wowee! Look at that. So much wear. Holy moly. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and take this apart. This is your center wheel cock. Alright. We have some hand cleaning to do. Okay, so now we're on to the calendar side. We're gonna remove your C-clip, which is in its factory position, which is good. Alright, that goes in its safe place. Wow, look at all that grime. Amazing. Amazing. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Mm-hmm. Nice clean plates. Very nice date ring as well. Looks very clean. All right, the last of the bits for the keyless works and calendar. All right. Seiko really engineered in efficiencies in these 6309 watches and 6306 as well. They're just very, very minimal in terms of their number of screws, number of non-stamped components. It's very, very nice to see this efficiency of engineering. Quite cool. Quite cool indeed. Come on, there we go. Check all your teeth on here, make sure everybody's happy. Alright, let's get your minute wheel, your cannon pinion, and your center wheel. There they go. Get that screw that fell into the bath. Okay, a couple more little pieces and we'll be done. One more screw, die shock. Come on, die shock. Alright, you don't want to come out? That's fine. You will come out. I always like to look at these to see if there's any residual lubrication. Just think about how long that oil's been in there. Oops. Oh. Alright, into the bath. U2 spring. Okay, good. Right, one more screw. And then a load of small bits and pieces. There's this. A little gummy, a little sticky. That's okay. It's going to be nice and clean at the end of the day. That little guy. Okay, that is it. That is where we stop, and now we move on to jeweling and hand cleaning and removing old grimy lubrication that it's worked its way through. We're going to look at all your bushings very closely. I have a slight feeling that that bushing is worn badly, but it will take some high power magnification to see that well. Okay, well, Pete, we will get you cleaned up and ready to get back together. Next time you see me, I'll have a clean movement. We'll be back. Okay, so some of you have expressed an interest in seeing the jeweling process, and it's not an easy thing to capture, but the basic premise is that you have a machine tool here. This is a Zeitz reamer jeweling assembly, so it's got a couple different functions, and you have with it a set of anvils and a set of pushers, different styles, flat, pump, concaves, and reamers. And so the reamers are essentially the equivalent of a drill bit, if you will, but they have a slightly different shape. So they're more like this. And if this is your plate for your movement, it will have, of course, the lower mainspring arbor port hole. And what we're trying to do here is ream this hole to a point where it can accept a jewel. Because as it sits, this hole here is, well, it isn't now. I've reamed it out in a bunch of steps. So I stepwise ream. I do a very slow progression of increasing sized holes until I get to the right size for the jewels that I have. And luckily, we've had our jewels made such that you can use the Zeitz reamer to create a hole, and it's slightly undersized from the size of the jewel itself, so it's a bit of a friction fit. So you actually are slightly extracting material as you push the jewel in place. And so I'm going to try, while we're on camera here, to go with the last reamer size, which in this case is a is this one here that I have installed. So that's my reamer. Make sure it's nice and clean. All right. So here's my final step. I hold it in place. Oops. Like I said, this is a delicate procedure that involves being very close to the work, so it's really tough to do this live. But here you go. Okay, so that's the final reamer size. And then we have to prepare the hole that we've reamed for the jewel. And so that means I have to then remove any burr that's on the edge and give it a slight chamfer with a tool here. So make sure that's nice and clean. I do a bit on the other side as well, just to make it look nice. And then we take some Rotico and we have to clean up the area, make sure there's no residual metal shavings or anything that can get in the way of the actual jewel going in, because the jewels are hard but brittle. And so that's a general thing with materials. A lot of times they'll be extremely hard, but that comes with the brittleness that is built in. And so there we go. All right, so now we have to put the jewel in. And so the jewel itself is pressed in by one of the pushers. So here's the jewel. This little ring of what looks like glass goes in place. Do that here. And we're just going to get that on the surface. All right, so now we have to change from the reaming side to the pushing side. So now we have our pusher and our handle. Okay. Now I pick a flat pusher that is larger than the jewel itself on the outside. So this machine flat surface, make sure that's clean, will push against the jewel, and when it's found the plate, essentially you can imagine having a donut that you're pushing on the donut with part of the pusher, and then when the pusher finds the surface of the plate, it will be in its completely flat position. So we're just trying to flatten the jewel against the surface of the plate. And so in order to do that, we, of course, I'm going to start here. Oh, this is 6309. So you need a slightly smaller anvil because there's a post. So you have to switch anvils here. You bring the pusher into place, and I usually just hold it now with my finger. Okay, so I'm holding, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this micrometer, and that will be my work against surface. So now I push and I slowly lower the pusher until it finds the surface of the plate. So here we go. I'm going to push with even pressure. Doesn't have to be hard, just enough. And as I lower the pusher, there we go. And there it is. Beautifully jeweled. I don't know how to do this. Bottom plate. Okay, that's one jewel in. Now we have to do another. All right. Next one is on the bridge, of course. So what we have to do here is push the worn, in this case, very worn, extremely worn, bushing out. I'll do that from this side because it's so worn on the back side. So this is a slightly less delicate process, but it's the same idea. You're pushing until you pop the, there it is. And that's the bushing removed, and we're going to retrieve that bushing. And now we go with our jewel. Boy, the lighting is terrible, and I'm so sorry about that. But we put our jewel in the position here. Because these jewels are larger, I need a larger pusher, so I get two sizes up. All right, that's good. That's where we want to start. This is all prior to cleaning, so any interaction that I have with these plates will be, of course, diminished by the cleaning process. And now push that home, and there we are. So now we have two new, well-centered jewels in our plates. All right, that's it. Okay, Pete, we are ready to get going. I'm gonna get started on reassembly here. So we've got your movement. Here's your newly installed lower mainspring Arbor port jewel, which will mitigate many of the potential issues associated with port wear. Your upper bushing was really worn, which means it's a good thing we have these bearings, jewels, to alleviate that issue. So we were talking about Dutch names, and my good friend Keisha, who taught me, it took a little while, but she taught me how to say her name properly. It came to good use once. I was at a conference, and in my field there are a lot of people from the Netherlands that do the type of work I do, and there was a student who was coming to give a talk, and I was introducing him, and he looked a little fearful that I would butcher his name, given that I am as American as my name suggests. And so when he got up to speak and I had to introduce him, I said, You know, here's Gijs from Emolf, and he was very surprised that I knew how to say Gijs. And if it hadn't been for Gijs, I wouldn't have known. So, thank you, Gijsje. Anyway, I have some collaborators, and one of them has a great last name. In fact, his first name is Henk, but his last name is Lekkerkerker, which, from my very bad Dutch, is the one who licks a church, or a tasty church, or something. It's very funny. And I heard this story once that when the Dutch were first forced, in a sense, by the church to have second names, last names, Christian names, if you will, they decided to kind of make a bit of a joke out of it and come up with things that were a little bit funny. And I think Lekkerkerker was one of those. Anyway, I don't know if that's apocryphal or if that's a real story, but it makes me kind of laugh to think that tasty church liquor is a real Dutch name. I think Henk has since departed this earth, so he was a wonderful person. Okay. All right. So all right, we're back. I have to check a few things. Here's your escape wheel. And your third wheel. And your center fourth wheel. In we go. Okay. There we go. All right, now everybody get lined up here. Ready to go in place. There we go. All right. There we go. Perfect. right. Looks good. Okay. Let's do some lubricating. Okay, let's put your ratchet wheel, which is nicely cleaned, ready to go in place. Very good. All right, let's flip the movement and do what we need to do on this side first. So here we add a little drop or two of lubrication to your center wheel for your cannon pinion, as the cannon pinion has to slip. It has to be lubricated in order for that to happen. All right, we're also going to lubricate your jewels. One. And two. Okay. And now we're going to insert your die shock setting. Dogs are snoring, as is always the case. Oh, come on. Don't get excited, just get in place. There we go. Oop. Thought I had it. Nope. Jumpy. So jumpy. Alright, no more of that jumpiness. Okay, good. Excellent. Return to this side, and we will check your movement. That looks pretty good. Yeah, everybody looks pretty happy. Okay. Now, next is your pallet fork. This delivers the power to your balance through short impulses to then send your pallet into a rotational timekeeping periodic signal, tick and tock, otherwise known. Good. Good. Right, let's check before we go too far. Put in some power here. Okay. Very good. Very good indeed. Okay. Ooh, solid. Solid. All right. Time for the balance to make its appearance. Let's see what we get. Do we have a timekeeper? Perhaps? Yes. The beginnings of timekeeper. Needs to be solidified here. Put into proper state of... There we go. Let's put your die shock. And look at that. Seems happy. If it's happy, I'm happy. Alright. Die shock spring. Sorry for all the noise. These two are just unbelievably loud. It's like in stereo. All right, there we go, Pete. Let's check it. Let's check our work, see how we've done. To the time grapher. All right, Pete. I'm not sure what happened to the audio in this, but this was the beginning of your time grapher analysis of the movement, and it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. These numbers are quite low compared to where it should be, so that sort of started me down thinking about what things might be at issue here. And you'll see in the next clip, as we get away from this point, there were some things that needed to be replaced. So these numbers are okay, but it's not where I need them to be. So I went back in, of course, and had a nice long look at some of the movement components, and it turns out your barrel and barrel arbor and the mainspring needed to be replaced as one full set. I also had to do some adjustment in some of your jewels, and once that was done, these numbers came up to within spec, and I felt very comfortable moving forward. So you'll see in the next portion what I mean by that. I'll show you the things that were replaced, and we'll go from there. All right. Thanks, Pete. Okay, Pete. Well, we are here at the calendar side. I had to do some adjusting and some replacement of items. I'll take you through that towards the end here, but I don't know if you recall, but when we took your ratchet off your plate, that your bridge, I should recall, bridge was quite worn. And usually in these sorts of systems, watches, movements, mechanical things that are coupled in some way are oftentimes, if one is worn badly, one part of that system, then another component within that system will also be show wear. And so your barrel your actual barrel and mainspring that I put back together, when you fully wound it, it had a very rough spot, which means that because of the automatic motion of the movement, and this is always being wound when the movement is being moved, mechanical movement produces a winding here. That led to some really bad stiff spots within this barrel. And so rather than risk it, I have replaced the entire barrel with a new mainspring. So now you have a brand new mainspring and a replacement barrel, which is in very good shape. And this one will come back to you with the rest of your replacement components. So I just, it's better not to take risks on something so important as the mainspring. It is the engine, if you will, that drives the watch. So it is the power source for your movement. And if that's wrong and it doesn't engage properly, you have big problems. So better to be safe than sorry. I have the parts available. I have the new replacement components available, so we are gonna do that. Okay, so now we can start to put the calendar together. So here's your correcting finger. Oh my goodness, so much noise today. So noisy, these dogs. Make sure that's properly lubricated. There we go. All right. And now your plates, retaining plates. Perfect. Oops, come back. So this is now performing. It wasn't that the accuracy was off. It was that the basic performance level where I expect these watches to be, just out of my own personal, I don't know what I would call it, perfectionism, whatever. I'm not happy unless I can get them above a certain threshold for amplitude and accuracy. And the accuracy was there, but the amount of power moving through the train was limited, and that's usually down to a mainspring if you have good components elsewhere. Now I did have to move your center wheel jewel a bit. It had moved quite a bit and you were loose. So I had to also do a little bit of adjusting on that, but that was not a big deal. That was a minor additional step, but it was really about the mainspring and the way it was winding that had me a bit concerned. So that's what we do when we make these things run properly. Okay, everything seems great. Let's go ahead and get you close to midnight here. Your finger should get close. Okay, let's put your day disc back on. Make sure that's nicely aligned here so we can easily put it in its proper position. There we go. Perfect. And your C-clip now goes on. Whoop. Maybe. Come on, C-clip. Beveled edge down, chamfered edge down. Perfect. Okay. That looks great. Alignment here at 3 o'clock is very good. Wednesday the 15th will be our date. Okay, now back to dial in hands, and then we reassemble. After that, we're done. I'll be back. Okay, Pete. Well, we are here at the end. Your movement is back in your case. Your case has been fully rebuilt. New gaskets and cleaned thoroughly. So now it's time to do the last few steps of the winding components. Let's get those in. Good. Okay. All right. And now your Daltron Incorporated branded winding weight. There it is. All right. It looks perfect. There we go. Okay, let's get your case back. Seal. And get your case back on. And with that, we are finished with the service of your 1979 6309 7040. A really nice watch. Really nice. Really well preserved. Everything is just so nice to see. No water damage, no issues, other than use. Use is, of course, what we want to repair. We don't want to repair things that are, abuse. Use is great. Abuse is another thing. So let's review what we did. Of course, full service of the movement. That meant 2 new jewels, one in the lower, one in the upper mainspring arbor port. Your upper. So let me just grab your items here. A few things to come back. So your upper mainspring arbor port and your lower mainspring arbor port were very badly worn, to the point where your barrel and your click, or your ratchet wheel, was wearing very, very steadily into your plate. Now, what that meant was that this, which is your mainspring barrel, had seen a lot of continuous use. And in doing so, that wore badly inside of here. And so after taking it apart and having another look and looking at the inside of here, it was just worn enough, and there's enough play in this that I just, I didn't feel comfortable. So this will come back to you. You've got your seals, your case back seals here somewhere. It might be inside here. Yes. So case back seal. Here's your square cross section crown seal. Here's your bezel gasket. That thing is very dry. Here's your crown, or I'm sorry, your crystal. So your crystal will come back to you. And one thing to note, just as a means of being cautious, is that with these cases, the way that the click ball works, and yours is still there, the click ball is sort of trapped by a cinching of the case around the ball. And that's very hard to reproduce. In fact, I don't know how to do it. But your click ball can be released from that cinch if it's not very tight to begin with. And so when you take the bezel off, sometimes the click ball is just sitting there waiting to fall. And that was the case with your watch. Now, it's fully captive. It will not come out because the bezel is on. But if the bezel ever comes off again, just be warned that the ball can pop out. Now, there are replacement balls, of course, but yours is still your original one. So that's something to just keep in mind. All right, well, Pete, thank you so much for sending me this lovely watch. It's cool to see another Daltron Incorporated pass my bench. And thanks again for trusting me with this piece. So I'll be in touch, and thanks for watching.